Hello everyone, I welcome you back to another important lecture that goes with the heading of Reproduction in Humans. And for today, we would look on toward understanding the structures and the functions of the male and the female reproductive tract. Since this is reproduction involving the human, so this is very evident that they reproduce sexually and there would be involvement of two parents. There would be a male parent and there would be the female parent. And in their bodies, they have got some specialized organs that go with the name of the gonads. And in these gonads, both of the parent they would make some specialized cells in them, and they are the gametes with us. So the idea is that the males they have the testes, which is their male gonad. It would be doing meiosis and the sperm cell would be produced. On the other way around, since we have the female parent or the female individual, in the reproductive tract they have the ovaries that makes their female gonads, and in them when the meiosis would be happening. So we would produce an egg cell out of them. Now, since the entire reproduction revolves around a male parent and the female parent, so it is important for us to look on toward the configuration which they have of their reproductive system. So here I bring you to be understanding the male reproductive system, and in that we have got the scrotum, then we have the testes. Then there would be coming up of some part that goes with the name of the epididymis. Then we have the spermatic cord. There would be some associated glands present as well. And among them, we have the seminal vesicle. And we have got the prostate gland. And then there would be coming up of the urethra. And at the end, we would have this organ in them, and that goes with the name of the penis. If I were to be taking you to the diagrams of this, so let me zoom the first diagram. So here you see is that there is a sac in which the testes are available or they hang out of the body. So this sac is what we refer to this as the scrotum. And within the scrotum, we have got the presence of these organs that I am highlighting at the moment, and they are the testes with us. In the testes, there would be production of the male gamete, that is the sperm cell, and after the sperm cells they have matured here in the testes, then they would be stored within the part that is not actually available here, and that looks like a coiled kind of a structure, and that is the epididymis, and for a short period of time the sperm would be available here. Now, when the male individual would sexually aroused, so the sperm, with the help of the peristalsis, they would move out of the epididymis and they would come into this duct that we have here on both sides, elongating out of the testes or out of the epididymis, and this is the spermatic cord. Now, the testes have just released the sperm, and the sperm, when it passes through these glands that we have here, like at this level, we have this seminal vesicle gland coming, and at this point, there is presence of another gland that is the prostate gland, and they produce some secretions, the mucus and the nutrients. And when they would mix up with the sperm that is available here, so we make a mixture out of it. The name of the mixture is semen. The semen would then come into this urethra, which is an opening that we have got at the center of this penile organ, which is the penis with us. And surprisingly, the urethra is a common passage for passing the urine out and the semen out. But the slight situation here is that when there would be the copulation process going on or the mating process going on between the male and the female individual, then there is a band of muscle that does not allow the urine to come at the same time when the semen is moving through the urethra. Now, ultimately, the penile organ that we have got here, so during the copulation or the intercourse process, this becomes hard, this becomes ejected, and this enters into the female reproductive tract, which is the vaginal canal or the birth canal with us, and over there, this male individual would be releasing the semen, and that semen would have the sperm in it. I would also like to mention that why was there need for the testes to hang out of the human body, like why they were not located within the body. So the issue is that the sperm production that takes place within testes that requires a lower temperature than the core body temperature, which is 37 degrees centigrade. So when we would hang the testes out of the body in the scrotum, so the temperature of the testes becomes slightly lower than the core body temperature of 37 degrees centigrade, and that is a favorable temperature for the maturation and the development of the sperm. If I were to show you this diagram that we have here on this side, so again, if you were to see, this is the foreskin or the scrotum with us. Here we have got the testes. Out of the testes, now this again is the spermatic cord. Here, this organ that we have here, this is the urinary bladder, and this tube at the center of the penis again is urethra. This is the male penile organ that we have with us. This is the gland with us that when releases some secretion and that mixes up with the sperm cell, so we make the semen out of it. So if I were to show you some other diagrams, so again, if you were to see, this is the scrotum, these are the testes, here we have the epididymis, then there would be coming up of this spermatic cord that we have here. This is the seminal vesicle gland. Here we have got the prostate gland. At the top again, there comes the urinary bladder, and again, this is the urethra with us, and this is the male penile organ, to what we are referring to this as the penis. For you, it is important that you must know the functions of the structures that are available within the male reproductive system. So the gland that we had was this was the prostate gland, and this produces fluid as I said, and that mixes up with the sperm cell, and we would make the semen out of it. Now, why was there need to be producing the fluid, having the nutrients in it or the mucus in it? Because the sperm cell they need to swim within the female reproductive tract. So the semen cells have the nutrients in it, so that would accommodate the sperm cells to be using them. Afterward, there was this sperm duct, and if you see above, that this allows the sperm to pass through the spermatic duct, and ultimately on the way, it was getting mixed up with the stations of the prostate gland and the seminal vesicles. And before ejaculation, this semen, this enters from the spermatic duct, ultimately coming into the urethra. Urethra was a tube that was present at the center of the penis. Not only it carries the semen, but also the urine. So there is a chance that during the ejaculation process, the semen can mix up with the urine, but we have got a ring of the muscles in the urethra that does not allow the urine to be released at the same time when the semen is being ejaculated out of the male reproductive system. Here we have got these testes, which are the male gonads, and as I have shown above, they were available within a foreskin or within a bag of skin referred to as scrotum. And these testes, they not only produce the sperm, but also their role is to be releasing the testosterone hormone, and that develops the male secondary characteristics. The scrotum or the foreskin, as we saw at this point, this guy right here that we have here. So this hangs the testes out of the male's body. That makes the temperature slightly lower, and that is important for the proper development and the maturation of the sperm cells. The penis has got two roles. Not only this passes the urine out of the body from the bladder, but also it carries the semen to pass into the vagina or the birth canal of the woman during the sexual intercourse. So that later when the sperm cell and the egg cell they both would fuse, then we can make the zygote and ultimately embryo, and we can go toward making a new child. Likewise, it is important for us to also know that what is the role of the male reproductive system. The idea is very simple that the male reproductive system has to make the male gamete, that gamete is the sperm cell, and it has got the genetic information that has to be transferred into the new offspring, and it comes from the male parent. So all the genetic information that is available in the male parent that would be reduced to half in the sperm cell by meiosis, and ultimately this is coming with the help of the sperm into the resulting offspring. Not only that, the testes are also responsible for releasing this hormone out of them, and this is the testosterone hormone. The testosterone hormone starts to get secreted in the bodies of the male individual when they reach the age of puberty, and under the influence of the testosterone hormone, they start to exhibit some characteristics that are the male secondary characteristics. That would give an idea to a male individual that now they have become sexually mature or they have reached their age of puberty. When this testosterone is secreted out of the testes and it goes into the blood plasma, then the male individual would develop these male secondary characteristics. Among them, there would be the growth of hair, their voice would sharpen, and their penile organ, which was the penis, that would also enlarge under the influence of this hormone, which was testosterone with us. Now, this is all the stuff that you are required to be remembering from the male reproductive tract or the male reproductive system. Since there is an equal contribution from the female individual as well, so we must know that what parts makes the female reproductive tract. So among them we would have the paired ovaries, then there would be a tubulated structure or a tube-like structure that goes with the name of oviducts or uterine tubes. Then there would be the womb coming or the uterus coming. We will have the cervix in them. There would be presence of the vagina or the birth canal as well. And there happens to be this part as well, which is clitoris. And we will see from the diagram that where all these components they are located and what's the functionality or the role of them relative to female reproductive tract or female reproductive system. Now this is a simplified diagram that I have included. So here if you were to see that this is the one ovary that we have in the female reproductive system, this is the second ovary. These ovaries have the immature eggs that would mature when they have reached the age of puberty. And once in a month in their menstrual cycle, the egg cell would be released and it would come into this tube-like structure that we have. And if you were to just simply see this, like appears to be a kind of a funnel-shaped like structure, and we refer to this as the oviducts. From the paper aspect, this is important that we must know that what happens in the oviducts actually. So you see, the male parent would come and he would release the semen here into the birth canal. The semen has a sperm. They would pass through the cervix, through the uterus, and ultimately they would come here into the oviduct. So, oviduct is actually a site where the fertilization would happen, and that simply means that the sperm cell and the egg cell they both would fuse or they both would fertilize each other in these oviducts, and we would make zygote out of it. Moving onward here, the part that we have here, like this part, and also this part, this is referred to as the uterus or the womb, and thanks partly to its soft inner lining that we have for the uterus, where the embryo would implant and later it would be developed, it would become complex within the female reproductive system. And after spending total of 9 months here in the uterus and the baby would mature and finally it would be delivered out of the birth canal that we have here or the vaginal canal that we have here. If you were to look this part which is cervix, so this is a fibrous kind of a structure, and the role of cervix is that when the baby is developing here in the uterus, so the cervix remains closed. And at the time of the delivery, the same cervix that we have here, this would widen or this would open up, and that would accommodate in the passing of the baby, that is the fetus with us, and ultimately it would be delivered out of the birth canal. The birth canal that we have here, it has got two roles. The one role is that this is a site where the male it would be depositing the semen having sperms in it. The other role of the birth canal or the vaginal canal is that this acts as a tube that opens on the outside of the body and that accommodates in the delivery of the baby out of here. Now, I have explained everything related to the female reproductive system, so I would simply take you to the table and then I would mark their functions. And I am starting from the ovary originally. And as I said above, that they have got in them the female gametes, which are the egg cells. And within the ovaries, they would mature. And once they develop, so ultimately, they would be coming into the oviducts. At the same time, the ovaries also has got a role in releasing two major hormones. One is the estrogen hormone that brings about the development of the female secondary characteristics. The other hormone which the ovaries releases, this is the progesterone hormone, the pregnancy hormone that keeps the uterus thick during the pregnancy period and would not allow or would not let the abortion of the baby. Likewise, after the ovaries, we have got something, and that was the oviducts. Like this funnel-like shape structure or the tubulated structure. And what we would be understanding here is that this oviduct is simply connect the ovaries that we have to the uterus. And at the same time, the fertilization would also be occurring here. Moreover, the other point is that when the sperm cell and the egg cell when they fuse with one another, like I am making sperm cell and here I am making the egg cell. So when they both would fuse, a zygote would form, and that zygote by the mitotic division that forms a ball of cell, and that ball of cell is embryo. If the embryo has to be implanted or if the female individual has to become pregnant, so this embryo needs to go down or it needs to move toward the uterus. So in the oviduct, we have got some ciliated cells as well, and they compel or they causes the embryo to move toward the uterus that we have here, here, and here. Anywhere the implantation can happen for the embryo, and the female individual would become pregnant. So this is why we have got this thing that here we have the ciliated cells as well in the oviduct, and that would push the embryo as well as egg cell that is released from the ovaries. Then I came toward the uterus, and as I said, this is a muscular bag and it has got a soft lining in it. And here the fertilized egg, that is zygote or embryo, it would come, it would implant, and later it would be developing to become an immature baby, unborn baby, and that would be the fetus with us. Other than that, we had the cervix with us, and that I highlighted above. So it is a ring of the muscle and is present at the lower end of the uterus. The idea with the cervix is that it keeps developing fetus in place, and at the time of delivery, this would widen up, this would open up, that would cause the fetus to be moving out of the female reproductive system or to be delivering out. At the last, we had this vagina. This again, like the uterus, is a muscular bag, and this leads to the inside of the woman body. And here, the male penile organ, which is penis, enters during the sexual intercourse, and by that, the sperm would be entering into the female reproductive tract. The vagina or the birth canal also accommodates moving out of the fetus out of the female reproductive tract at the time of the delivery. If I were to be highlighting the major roles of the female reproductive system, so when the females they reach the age of puberty, the ovaries in them that forms the egg cells. At the same time, the female reproductive tract, the ovaries specifically, also releases the estrogen hormone, and that is responsible for the development of the female secondary characteristics. Like when they would reach the age of 12, so they would begin to grow the hairs under their armpits and the pubic areas. Their mammary glands would start to enlarge. The menstrual cycle would begin in their body. There would also be the hips enlargement. So all of them that are written in this box, they are the female secondary characteristics, and they develop under the influence of the estrogen hormone. Moreover, if the females they become pregnant, so out of their ovaries or their female reproductive tract, there would be secretion of this progesterone hormone, and that keeps the soft inner lining of the uterus thick and would allow for the maintenance of the pregnancy and would prevent the abortion. At the same time, the female reproductive tract also brings about the development and the growth of the baby as well. So I hope you would be very much clear with understanding the male and the female reproductive system.